we are here to make some beads. We start out with the mandrel. Make sure that's all ready to go. We've got our tag with our name on the mandrel. Chances are your mandrel with the bead on it is not going to be ready to, you're not going to be ready to remove the bead today because everything's going to be very hot. So what we like to do is save the mandrels overnight for you so they can slow cool. And then in the morning, you'll come identify your mandrel with your name, and you can take the bead off and go from there. So up front, a little bit of prep. Choose the glass colors that you want. You can pick 2, 3, 4 rods, whatever you're working with. Get your mandrel prepped. I like to lay everything down there so it's like ready to go. You're also going to need some fancy safety glasses. These are special safety glasses. You can see through them really easily, but they cut the glare. Because I can say, when you start heating this glass and you're staring at it intently, it's like staring at the sun. So that's where these like 1950s style glasses come in super handy. So I'm going to grab the sparker and I'm going to light this baby up. There's two knobs here. The red knob is natural gas, the same stuff that most people heat their house with. The other knob is a silver knob, which is attached to a green hose. Green in the industry is always oxygen, so this is oxygen. We're mixing natural gas and oxygen. Lighting the oxygen first would be pretty tough to do, so we always start with the natural gas. About 3/4 of a turn, you can hear it flowing. Use your sparker, give it a little spark. Probably going to get a flame, maybe, I like to compare it to like maybe the length of a banana. Good unit of measure there. There's a lot of airflow in this room, so it's probably going to flicker around, but that's okay. Just estimate about the length of a banana. We can make adjustments later. Next up, I'm going to get the oxygen going. With about 1/4 of a turn, slow turn, the oxygen's going to start flowing. And you can tell that's happening. Changes the entire look of the flame. I'm listening for that nice hissing sound, okay? I'm also looking right down in here. I can see these cones, and the cones, the short cones, about 1 centimeter in length. That's the hottest part of your fire, right at the tip of those cones. So this whole flame is hottest right there, a little less hot here, and again, less hot up here, but still quite hot. For this whole project, we're going to use the entirety of that flame. One thing that makes this whole activity, I think, kind of interesting is that you got a lot going on at once. It does take some getting used to, takes some finesse, and with practice, you'll get better and better. But I think that's what makes it super fun, is that you're like your first bead maybe doesn't turn out so well, but your second, your third, your fourth bead, you're going to see some really great results. So I've picked a couple colors to start with. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start with yellow, and I like to put the mandrel in my dominant hand. So I'm going to put it in my right hand. So whatever hand you write with, probably best to put the mandrel in that hand. Over the course of this process, you're going to be spinning the mandrel, rotating it. Same thing with the glass. You're going to have two things moving at once. You're around the hot flame, but don't worry about that. I can put my hand near the side and there's hardly any heat coming at me. It's just nice and warm. The real heat is above it, okay? So you'll quickly get used to the fact that you're around a super hot flame. If you're safe and you're in the right proximity, you won't get hurt. Okay. So let's get this thing started. I'm going to start by slowly warming up my glass, okay? If I take this piece of glass and jam it right into the center of the hottest part of the flame, chances it's going to get super hot unevenly, and it's going to fracture and even pop and like spit little pieces of glass everywhere. So it's best to slowly warm up the glass. So you're going to hold it up here, okay? You're going to slowly like bring it down into the warmest part of the flame. And you're going to notice as you get it into the warmest part of the flame, the color of the glass is even going to change, okay? That's okay. Sometimes it changes to the point that it doesn't actually go back to its original color. That's just the nature of this kind of glass. So I'm slowly warming up this glass. And I can hear it kind of popping and cracking in there, which is okay, as long as no piece hits me. I'm also going to bring my mandrel up here. So the mandrel, rarely will I ever take it below this area. Most of the time the mandrel lives right up here where it stays nice and warm, okay? If you jam the mandrel right into the hottest part, that sludge material we got on there, which is like caked mud, remember that's the barrier between the glass and the stainless steel. That's what keeps the glass from fusing to the stainless steel. So we need to keep that barrier of sludge intact. If I jam this mandrel right into the hottest part of the flame, it's going to get red hot, and all that like caked on mud stuff is probably just going to pop off. And we're going to lose its ability to provide that barrier between glass and steel. Okay, so don't let that stuff get, don't let that sludge material get hot too quick. So I'm holding it up here. I'm slowly bringing my glass down. A piece of glass broke off. That's okay, that happens. So I'm going to get just the tip of this glass hot enough that it's ready to drip. And when it gets to the point that it's going to drip, I'm going to bring the glass back up and catch the drip on the mandrel, okay? I'm not going to bring the mandrel to the glass. I'm going to bring the glass up to the mandrel. Again, I want to keep the mandrel way up here. The other thing is if you've noticed, I'm rotating both my left hand and my right hand. I'm keeping both materials moving, especially the glass. If I just hold my hand still with the glass, that big drip of glass is just going to drop down onto the table and I'll lose it. So kind of like if you got a spoonful of honey, you got to keep that spoon moving so the honey doesn't get all over your countertop. So I can tell this yellow glass is getting close to wanting to drip. So I got to be on my game, I got to pay attention. And just before it drips, I'm going to bring it up to the mandrel and lay a bead right onto the mandrel. I'm about a ½ inch in from the tip of the mandrel. I'm doing that because I want to have a decent hole through the entire bead so that I can put the bead on a chain or a rope or something like that. If you put the bead right at the tip of your mandrel, you won't have that hole, like a hole you'd have in a donut. So I put a little drip of glass on the mandrel. That's good, but I want more glass. So I'm going to go back down with the glass, get it hot again, bring it back up, and catch that drip. I'm going to roll the mandrel to catch the whole drip and keep everything moving. At this point, once you've got a couple drips on there, a couple drips of glass, you might have a bead that's big enough, you'll be satisfied with it. Or maybe you want a little more glass. I'm going to go for a little more. So I'm getting the tip of my yellow glass hot again, and I'm going to catch one more drip. Rolling the mandrel to catch that whole drip. I'm not going to let the glass rod touch the mandrel. If you do that, it just makes a mess. You end up rubbing off some of that sludge material. Sometimes they even like stick to each other. Makes a huge mess. So at this point, I've got 3 drips of glass on the mandrel. I'm pretty satisfied with the quantity there. So I think I'm done with the yellow glass. I'm going to hold my mandrel here and just kind of rotate it and let some of that glass flow to make a more even symmetrical bead. Sometimes at this point it requires getting a little lower in the flame to get a little more heat, get everything to move around. Should be okay though, because at this point there's a barrier, or sorry, the glass has now, how would you say, there's enough sludge between glass and mandrel that I don't think anything's going to fuse. I don't think the glass is going to fuse to the mandrel. Okay. Something else you might notice, I'm always keeping this mandrel completely horizontal. As soon as I tip the mandrel like this or like this in any way, this glass is going to start flowing up or down, and I won't end up with a nice symmetrical bead. I might end up with like a spiral. We don't want that either. So work hard to keep your mandrel perfectly horizontal, perfectly level. All right. I'm going to get this a little bit hotter because I want that glass to smooth out and ideally kind of make kind of a classic donut shape. That's what I'm going to go for on this bead. The thing about beads is you get good at this, man, there's so much you can do, the shapes you can make. And if you go online or look at some of the books I have in the other room, you'll see some crazy beads, just really intricate, some big, some with many, many, many colors, lots of texture. So I'm going to now add a stripe of blue. Okay, so I've got what's mostly like a donut shape of the bead there. I'm pretty satisfied with that. So I'm going to do that process again where I'm going to slow heat my glass. I'm going to slowly bring it in here. Let me swap places. So above, I'm just keeping my bead warm. It's cool enough that it's not going to flow or drip. So I can just hold it up high. Meanwhile, my blue glass here is starting to get hot enough it's ready to lay a drip. So I'm just going to try to lay a thin band around the outside of my donut-shaped bead. It's going to look like this. Bring the glass to the rod. Hopefully this is getting caught on camera. There we go, something like that. I think that's good for my blue. I'm gonna rotate it around, kind of let that glass flow into place. Not that you'd have to. You could actually leave it just like this and you'd have a tall standing stripe all the way around the bead. I'm gonna let them blend in just a little bit by letting the glass get hot. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. So coming up high again. I like the shape of my bead. I like the glass that's in there. I think I'm pretty much done adding glass material to the bead. So now I'm ready just to kind of finish the process. And I finish by slowly letting this glass bead cool. In a moment, I'm going to place it underneath this fiberglass batting. Okay, that'll protect it and keep it warm, and it'll slowly come to room temperature. But I don't just want to do that right now because I know that that glass is sticky. It's like, you know, I compare it to honey. Again, like if I touch it to this fiberglass batting, it's probably going to stick, and all these little fibers are going to get stuck to my bead, and it's going to end up looking really crummy. And as a teacher, I don't give stamps for beads that look like that. So I'm holding the bead up here in the coolest part of the flame, the area where there's the least amount of heat. And I'm just going to slowly pull it further and further away. I can see that the glass, the coloring is going from that bright orange, like wicked hot orange color, to back to normal color. So the temperature is definitely dropping on this bead. Okay, it's nice and glossy. I think the shape is good. I think it looks good. And in just a moment, I'm going to put it right under the fiberglass batting. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to, like, you know, hang out here and hold the bead and let it get all air cooled. We got to keep it hot as long as possible. So because of the color, I think it's no longer probably sticky, and that's a good time to put it in the fiberglass batting. So I'm going to make sure I don't bump into anybody. I'm going to open this up and jam it in. And I'm going to let it sit there for probably at least 15 or 20 minutes before I even check it. Giving that a blast of cool air, it's probably going to end up just cracking the bead. So we want to protect the bead. I'm done here with the flame, so time to turn it off. I'm going to turn it off in reverse order of how I started it. So going to turn off the oxygen first, turn off the natural gas second, and we're done. So I think that is it. The next lesson will be how to remove the bead from the mandrel. All right, have fun, make some beads.